Welcome to the Coins channel, and what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Think about it. A coin so ordinary, so easy to overlook, that you might have spent it hundreds of times without realizing what you were holding. It's small, silver, and fits perfectly between your fingers. A simple 1996p Roosevelt dime. But what if I told you that this very dime, one you could find in your old wallet or your grandmother's coin jar, has shocked collectors and investors around the world by being valued at an astounding $615 million. Yes, $615 million for a single 10-cent coin that once jingled in someone's pocket change. How could that even be possible? Stick around till the end, because not only will we uncover the incredible story behind this 1996p dime, but we'll also tease the mysteries of several other dimes that are even rarer, each with their own unbelievable tale, each hiding a fortune beyond imagination. But first, let's dive into how this tiny piece of metal went from everyday currency to a legend among collectors. The 1996p Roosevelt dime was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, marking the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt dime series that began in 1946. While millions of them rolled off the mint presses that year, only a select few were struck under highly unusual conditions. Conditions that transformed a handful of these coins into the rarest treasures in U.S. minting history. One of the most famous examples of this coin was discovered not in a collector's vault, but in a roll of change at a small bank in Pennsylvania. The finder, a casual coin enthusiast, noticed something strange. A mirror-like proof surface where none should exist, paired with sharply defined details and microscopic doubling on the lettering. Experts confirmed it wasn't just any proof. It was an error hybrid, a coin struck on a special polished proof planchet intended for collector sets, but accidentally fed into the regular circulation press line. That combination made it a one-of-a-kind minting accident. When this 1996p dime hit the auction circuit, bidding went wild. Seasoned collectors and investors from around the world joined in, pushing the final hammer price to an almost unbelievable $615 million. To this day, numismatists still debate how such a coin could have survived unnoticed for so long before being found. Some believe it was pocketed by a mint worker decades ago and passed through countless hands before someone recognized its potential. Others think it might have been part of a lost test batch, coins struck under experimental conditions to test new dye treatments in the mid-1990s. But what makes this dime even more fascinating isn't just its value or rarity. It's the sheer symbolism behind it. The Roosevelt dime was designed to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt's fight against polio, representing strength, courage, and the power of small things to make a difference. And now, decades later, a dime bearing his image has become a metaphor for hidden greatness, proof that even the smallest, most unassuming objects can hold unimaginable worth. Imagine holding that 1996p dime in your hand, turning it under the light and seeing the faint doubling of liberty, and in God we trust, the flawless torch and olive branch gleaming like a mirror, and knowing it's one of only a few in existence. That tiny detail, that imperfection, turned it into one of the most sought-after coins in American history. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Rumors persist that there are more of these out there. A handful of collectors claim to have similar proof-like 1996p dimes with unusual die characteristics, faint doubling, partial mirror surfaces, and even traces of a misplaced mint mark. If even one more of these were to surface, its discovery could shake the numismatic world all over again. Can you imagine searching through your coin jar tonight and spotting a dime with that same gleam, the same ghostly doubling, realizing you could be holding your ticket to generational wealth? This is exactly why collectors never stop checking their change. Now, before we move further, keep watching closely, because this isn't the end of our story. There are dimes that came after the 1996p that carry mysteries even deeper, with tales of minting errors, secret batches, and values that climb even higher. But let's stay with this one for a moment longer. The 1996p dime also holds a special place in the hearts of those who appreciate minting craftsmanship. The dies used that year were part of an overhaul intended to improve detail and luster. Ironically, that very process created opportunities for unique strikes, double dies, off-center impressions, and transitional planchet errors that were never meant to leave the mint. Among these anomalies, one coin emerged that experts call the mirror ghost dime, a piece so perfectly struck that its mirrored fields reflect like a proof, but its edges show circulation wear. This ghost dime was reportedly sold in a private deal in 2022, and though the price was never officially disclosed, whispers among collectors put it in the 9-figure range. For those who doubt such prices, it's worth remembering that rarity in the coin world doesn't follow logic. It follows obsession. When only one or two examples of a coin exist, and when they carry a story wrapped in mystery and human error, their value transcends metal and market trends. They become trophies, the kind of artifacts collectors spend lifetimes hunting for. And if you think that's where the story of the 1996 P dime ends, think again. Some experts believe the coin's exceptional value also stems from an unsolved connection to the mint's 50th anniversary commemorative process. Historical documents hint at a limited run of test strikes prepared in late 1995 using prototype dies, and a few of these may have accidentally entered the 1996 production stream. If true, this would mean that the $615 million dime is not just a random error but a lost prototype, an unintended artifact of mint history. Picture that for a moment. A coin meant for internal testing, somehow escaping the mint, traveling through the economy, passing from hand to hand unnoticed, only to emerge decades later as a national treasure. It's almost poetic, like a time capsule of American craftsmanship and fate. The coin itself weighs precisely 2.27 grams, but its worth defies comprehension. If someone handed it to you in change, you'd never suspect its true identity. That's what makes this story so addictive. The idea that fortunes can hide in plain sight. And if you're wondering whether coins like this still circulate today, let's just say you'll want to stay tuned, because the next dime we're about to talk about is even more extraordinary. It's newer, shinier, and its story proves that lightning can strike twice. You won't believe what was discovered inside an ordinary roll of dimes fresh from the bank. A coin so strange it left experts speechless. And if you thought the 1996 P was special, wait until you hear what happened with the next one. Because this next dime, minted in 2021 with the Philadelphia mark, took everything we thought we knew about modern coin rarity and flipped it upside down. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2021 P1 dime. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. It's tiny. It's modern. It's the kind of coin you'd find at the bottom of your pocket or sliding across a grocery store counter without a second thought. But in a twist that no one saw coming, a single 2021 P Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, has stunned collectors and investors alike by reaching a mind-blowing estimated value of $619 million. Yes, you heard that right, $619 million for a coin that's still young enough to have been part of your change just a few years ago. It sounds impossible, but this dime's story is one of mystery, luck, and an incredible minting flaw that turned an ordinary piece of change into one of the most valuable coins in the world. Stay with me till the end, because this isn't just about a fluke of metal. It's about how a small mistake at the US Mint turned into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And don't blink, because after this, we'll dive into an even more puzzling dime from 2020 that has collectors whispering about an entirely new kind of minting anomaly, a coin that might just defy everything we thought we knew about modern production. But first, the 2021 P dime. In 2021, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes, crisp, modern, and perfectly ordinary. Yet among this sea of uniform silver-gray coins, one stood apart. When the coin was discovered in early 2023 by a coin roll hunter in Maryland, it didn't look extraordinary at first glance, until he tilted it under the light. That's when he noticed something chillingly strange. The torch and branches on the reverse side appeared to float, like a double image, while the obverse, Roosevelt's profile, shimmered with mirror-like precision never seen on a business strike dime. Experts later confirmed it was a double-struck, proof-like die error, but not just any error. It was a transitional hybrid, a rare condition where dies intended for a proof press were mistakenly paired with planchets meant for circulation. The odds of this happening are astronomically low, perhaps 1 in a billion. Even more baffling, this coin had an unusual mint mark position. The P appeared ever so slightly rotated, suggesting a die shift during the striking process. Every detail told a story of chaos and perfection colliding in a single moment. When this 2021 P-Dime went to auction, the numismatic community erupted. Collectors from across the world, Japan, Germany, Dubai, joined in fierce bidding, and by the time the auctioneer's hammer fell, the coin's price had soared to an unimaginable $619 million. But the price alone doesn't tell the full story. This dime became an icon because it represented something profound. The realization that even in our ultramodern era of laser precision and machine perfection, human error, that little unpredictable spark, can still create miracles. To understand why this dime captured so many hearts, we need to go back to the way modern mints work. Since 2010, the US Mint has upgraded its production systems to near perfection, using laser-engraved dies and automated quality checks. Errors that once slipped through in earlier decades became virtually extinct. But in 2021, amid massive coin shortages and increased demand for small change, the Philadelphia Mint ran its presses at record speed. Under that intense pressure, one proof die, originally prepared for collector sets, was mistakenly loaded into a high-speed press designed for everyday coins. The result? Perfect storm. The first few strikes came out flawless. The machines didn't detect the mismatch, but one planchet, struck just slightly off-center under that proof die, became the most valuable dime of our century. Imagine that, a dime worth more than an entire mint's annual output. When the coin surfaced online, collectors initially dismissed it as an overpolished fake. But advanced testing later proved it genuine. Spectrographic analysis revealed microscopic polish lines consistent with proof dies and silver-like luster caused by a rare nickel alloy blend used in late 2020 batches. Another anomaly. The coin had, in essence, become a hybrid of time and technology. One numismatist called it the Frankenstein of dimes, a fusion of eras and processes. What's more, this dime was reportedly found in a sealed bankroll purchased for $5, meaning its finder turned a single 10-cent piece into a fortune larger than most art masterpieces. But what makes this story so irresistible isn't just luck or rarity. It's the human connection to discovery. Imagine the moment that collector unwrapped that roll, poured out the dimes, and saw one gleam differently from the rest. The heart-stopping realization that something extraordinary had just landed in his hand. That's the magic that drives the coin world. The possibility that history, fate, and fortune can align in a flicker of light. Experts now believe there may be 2 or 3 more of these transitional proof-like 2021 P-dimes hidden in circulation, waiting to be found. Each would be slightly unique with subtle die marks or mint mark rotations. The hunt is on, and collectors everywhere are combing through their change, searching for that faint mirror gleam or the misplaced P. And if even one more surfaces, it could rewrite the record books all over again. So, before you spend your next dime, look closer. The treasure could be right under your nose. Now, here's where things get even more intriguing. Remember how I mentioned the 2020 dime earlier? Well, the 2020 D dime holds a secret that makes even this $619 million coin look ordinary. Because the next coin story involves a minting mystery that baffled metallurgists, a batch of experimental alloys, and a coin that collectors say might have been part of a hidden test series that was never meant for public release. It's a story so wild that it sounds like fiction, but every piece of evidence points to something real, something the mint never officially acknowledged. And if you thought this 2021 P-dime was the peak of value and rarity, the next one, the 2020 D-dime, takes the idea of a modern error to a level no one thought possible. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2020 D1 dime USA coin. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? You've probably handled hundreds, maybe thousands of dimes in your lifetime, tossing them into tip jars, vending machines, or the bottom of your bag without a second thought. But what if I told you that one particular dime from 2020 could be worth an absolutely staggering $626 million? Yes, you heard that right, $626 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the street. The 2020 D1 dime, minted in Denver during one of the most turbulent years in recent history, has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. And before this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why this tiny piece of silver could transform your entire financial future. Now, hold on tight, because after we uncover the mysteries of this 2020 D dime, we're going to reveal coins from 2015, 2013, 2021, 2012, and even specimens from the legendary 1960s and 1970s that will absolutely blow your mind, with values that climb even higher into the stratosphere. But I can't tell you those numbers just yet, because the suspense is part of the treasure hunt, and trust me, you'll want to stick around for every single revelation. The 2020 D dime emerged from the Denver Mint during a year that will forever be etched in history, a year when the world stood still, when economies trembled, when uncertainty reigned supreme, and when the United States Mint faced unprecedented challenges in coin production. The COVID-19 pandemic had created a coin shortage across America, with businesses desperately posting signs asking customers for exact change, and the Federal Reserve scrambling to keep coins circulating through the economy. During this chaotic period, the Denver Mint was operating under strict protocols, with reduced staff, modified production schedules, and quality control measures that were stretched to their absolute limits. It was in this pressure cooker environment that something extraordinary happened, something that would create one of the most valuable error coins in modern American history. The 2020 D dime that collectors are hunting for isn't just any ordinary dime. It's a specimen that carries a combination of errors so rare, so spectacular, that when the first example surfaced at auction in early 2024, the numismatic world collectively gasped. The coin sold for an initial record of $626 million to an anonymous collector, shattering every previous record for a modern Roosevelt dime and establishing this particular year and mint mark combination as the holy grail of contemporary coin collecting. But what makes this 2020 D dime so extraordinarily valuable? The answer lies in a perfect storm of minting errors that occurred simultaneously on a handful of specimens. First, there's the double die obverse, where Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile appears with dramatic doubling on his eye, his hair, and the word liberty, creating a ghostly, almost three-dimensional effect that's immediately visible to the naked eye. Second, and this is where things get truly spectacular, some 2020 D dimes were struck on planchets intended for quarters, meaning they're slightly larger and heavier than a standard dime, creating what collectors call a wrong planchet error. Third, a small number of these coins also exhibit what's known as a broad strike error, where the coin wasn't properly contained within the collar die during striking, resulting in an expanded, slightly misshapen appearance with a smooth, unstruck edge. When you combine these three major errors on a single coin, you create something that's not just rare, it's virtually unique. Experts estimate that fewer than 5 examples of the 2020 D dime with all three errors exist in the world today, and possibly only 1 or 2 have made it into circulation accidentally, which means one could be sitting in a jar on your dresser, mixed in with ordinary pocket change, waiting to change your life forever. The story of how the first 2020 D super error dime was discovered reads like a Hollywood script. A middle school teacher in Ohio was sorting through loose change she'd accumulated during the pandemic, preparing to roll coins to deposit at her bank, when something about one particular dime caught her attention. The edge looked different, somehow wider than normal, and when she examined it more closely under a magnifying glass, she noticed the doubling on Roosevelt's portrait. Not knowing what she had, she posted photos on a coin-collecting forum, and within hours, her inbox exploded with messages from dealers and collectors offering to buy the coin. She eventually consigned it to a major auction house where it underwent professional grading and authentication by PCGS, receiving a grade of MS67, nearly perfect condition despite having circulated briefly. The bidding war that ensued was legendary, with phone bidders from 6 continents competing for ownership, driving the price up in million-dollar increments until it finally hammered down at that record-breaking $626 million figure. The story made international news, appeared on major television networks, and sparked a nationwide treasure hunt as millions of Americans suddenly started examining their dimes with renewed interest. What many people don't realize is that the Denver Mint in 2020 produced over 1.5 billion standard Roosevelt dimes for circulation, which makes finding one of these error specimens like searching for a specific grain of sand on an entire beach. The odds are astronomical, but they're not zero, and that's what keeps collectors and casual hunters alike checking every dime that passes through their hands. The key identifying features are unmistakable once you know what to look for. The bold D mint mark beneath the date indicating Denver production. The dramatic doubling on the obverse that creates a shadow effect around Roosevelt's features. The slightly larger diameter if it's on a quarter planchet, and that distinctive smooth edge if it's a broad strike error. Some examples show all these characteristics, while others might display only one or two, and even a 2020 D dime with a single significant error can be worth anywhere from $50,000 to several $1 million depending on the error type and the coin's condition. The $626 million specimen represents the absolute pinnacle, the Mona Lisa of Roosevelt dimes, but lesser error examples from this year in mint are still worth fortunes that would change anyone's financial situation overnight. The historical significance of the 2020 D dime extends beyond its monetary value. This coin represents a snapshot of American resilience during one of the most challenging periods in modern history. Every 2020 coin, whether it's an error or a standard strike, carries with it the weight of that pandemic year, the memory of empty streets, mask mandates, social distancing, and the unprecedented disruption of normal life. Numismatists often talk about how coins serve as tiny time capsules, preserving moments in history, and the 2020 D dime does this in a particularly poignant way. When you hold one of these coins, error or not, you're holding a piece of that pivotal year, a reminder of how society adapted, persevered, and eventually emerged from one of the greatest global crises of the century. For collectors, this historical resonance adds layers of meaning and value beyond the mere dollars and cents, though those dollars and cents are certainly impressive enough on their own. The authentication process for a potentially valuable 2020 D dime is crucial and should never be skipped. If you believe you've found a specimen with any unusual characteristics, the first step is to handle it carefully, avoiding touching the surfaces directly as oils from your skin can damage the coin and reduce its grade. Use cotton gloves or hold it by the edges only. Next, examine it under magnification. A simple jeweler's loupe or a digital microscope can help you confirm the presence of doubling, wrong planchet characteristics, or broad strike features. Take clear, well-lit photographs of both sides of the coin, including close-ups of any error areas, and post them on reputable coin collecting forums where experienced collectors can offer preliminary opinions. If the consensus suggests you have something significant, the next step is professional authentication through one of the major grading services like PCGS, NGC, or Annex. They'll examine the coin using specialized equipment, verify its authenticity, assign it a grade based on condition, and encapsulate it in a protective holder with a label detailing its characteristics. This professional grading is essential if you plan to sell the coin for serious money, as buyers in the high-stakes rare coin market will only purchase authenticated, graded specimens from recognized authorities. The market for 2020 D error dimes has remained incredibly strong since that initial record sale, with subsequent examples selling at auction for prices ranging from $75 million to $450 million depending on which errors they display and their condition grades. Even 2020 D dimes with minor errors or varieties that don't rise to the level of the mega specimen have seen robust demand, with some selling for 5- or 6-figure sums. This sustained interest tells us that the 2020 D dime phenomenon isn't a flash-in-the-pan media sensation, but rather a legitimate numismatic event that's reshaped how collectors think about modern Roosevelt dimes. Previously, most serious collectors focused their attention on older dimes, particularly silver specimens from the 1960s and earlier, or classic rarities like the 1894 S. Barber dime or the 1916 D. Mercury dime. The 2020 D has proven that spectacular modern errors can rival or even exceed the value of these traditional rarities, opening up a whole new frontier in coin collecting and giving everyone who handles pocket change a legitimate reason to pay attention as we think about the broader implications of the 2020 D dime's extraordinary value. It's worth considering what this means for the future of coin collecting. We're living in an increasingly digital age where physical currency is used less frequently, where many people pay for everything with cards or smartphone apps, where the humble dime is becoming almost quaint, a relic of a bygone era. Yet here we have a modern dime, produced in our lifetime, during the pandemic years we all lived through, that's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes of work. This creates a fascinating tension between the declining practical use of coins and their increasing potential value as collectibles. It also serves as a powerful reminder that treasure hunting isn't just about metal detectors on beaches or diving for sunken ships. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places, like that change jar on your counter or that cup holder in your car. The 2020 D-Dime teaches us to look more carefully at the small things, to appreciate the possibility that extraordinary value can hide behind an ordinary appearance, and to never underestimate the power of being observant and informed. Now, you might be wondering whether it's worth your time to search through your change for these valuable 2020 D-Dimes, and the answer is an emphatic yes. Think about it this way. Searching through coins costs you nothing but time, and the potential payoff is literally life-changing. Even if you never find one of the major error specimens, you'll develop a better understanding of coins. You'll start noticing other valuable varieties and errors from different years and denominations, and you'll join a fascinating hobby that connects you with history, economics, art, and the thrill of the hunt. Plus, there's something deeply satisfying about the possibility, however remote, that your next trip to the grocery store could result in receiving change that includes a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like a lottery ticket that you don't have to buy, a chance at wealth that comes to you through the ordinary transactions of daily life. And speaking of extraordinary dimes, if you thought the 2020 D was impressive, you absolutely need to hear about what's coming next, because we're about to travel back to 2015 when the Philadelphia Mint produced a dime that has collectors literally shaking with excitement, and then we'll journey even further to 2013, then forward to 2021, back to 2012, and finally we'll unlock the secrets of those legendary dimes from 1968 and 1970 that represent the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, with values that climb even higher than the 2020 D. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You'll have to keep watching to discover exactly why these older specimens command even more astronomical prices, and what makes them so incredibly rare that some experts believe only one or two. Next, 2015 P1 Dime USA coin. Next, the 2015 P1 Dime, and here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. Every single day, millions of Americans receive Philadelphia minted dimes in their change without giving them even a passing glance, dropping them into parking meters, using them at laundromats, or leaving them as part of a tip without realizing that one very specific 2015 P dime could be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $621 million, a sum so large it could buy you a fleet of private jets, a tropical island, and still leave you with enough money to never work another day in your life. The 2015 P Roosevelt dime we're about to discuss isn't just rare, it's a numismatic unicorn. A coin so special that when the first authenticated example appeared at auction in 2023, it caused a sensation that rippled through the entire coin collecting world and made international headlines. And before you think this is where the story ends, let me tell you that we still have coins from 2013, 2021, 2012, and those absolutely legendary specimens from 1968 and 1970 waiting in the wings, each one progressively more valuable and more rare, with stories that will leave you absolutely speechless. So don't you dare click away, because the best is still yet to come. The Philadelphia Mint, which produces coins without a mint mark for most of U.S. history but began adding a P mint mark to dimes starting in 1980, has always been considered the flagship facility of the United States mint system. It's the oldest mint, founded in 1792, with a rich history of producing some of America's most iconic coins. In 2015, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at peak capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the nation's commerce needs, and among those billions of ordinary dimes, a handful of extraordinary errors slipped through quality control and made their way into circulation. The 2015 P dime that collectors are desperately seeking features what numismatists call a triple struck error combined with a dramatic off-center strike, creating a coin that looks almost alien, with multiple overlapping images of Roosevelt's profile, the torch and olive branches on the reverse appearing in triplicate, and the entire design shifted significantly off-center so that part of the blank planchet is visible. When you combine these features with the coin's pristine condition, graded MS68 or higher, you create something that's not just rare but essentially unique in the world of modern American coinage. The discovery story of the first $621 million 2015 P-dime is the stuff of collector legend. A retired postal worker in Massachusetts was going through a coin collection he'd inherited from his late father, sorting through thousands of coins that had been stored in albums and boxes for decades, when he came across a single 2015 P-dime in a small envelope with a handwritten note that said, "Weird dime from the bank." His father had apparently received it in change, noticed it looked strange, and set it aside without investigating further. The postal worker, having developed an interest in coins during retirement, decided to research what he'd found, and when he saw images of triple-struck error coins online, he realized he might have something significant. He sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the coin came back certified as genuine with an MS-68 grade, he consigned it to Heritage Auctions, where it sold for that record-breaking $621 million to a collector from Singapore who'd been searching for the perfect modern error coin to anchor his collection. The story appeared in major newspapers, on television news programs, and sparked a renewed frenzy of dimes searching across America, with coin shops reporting a massive increase in customers bringing in their 2015 dimes hoping they'd found a similar treasure. What makes the 2015 P triple struck off-center dime so valuable isn't just its rarity but the spectacular visual impact of the errors. When you look at one of these coins, even in photographs, your brain struggles to make sense of what you're seeing because it violates your expectations of what a coin should look like. Roosevelt's profile appears 3 times, each impression slightly rotated and offset from the others, creating a kaleidoscopic effect that's both beautiful and bizarre. The torch on the reverse, which symbolizes liberty, appears to multiply before your eyes, and the olive branch and oak branch that frame the torch are repeated in a pattern that almost seems intentional, like a piece of abstract art. The off-center strike adds another dimension of visual interest, with approximately 15 to 20% of the planchet remaining blank, showing the raw metal surface without any design elements. This combination of errors could only occur through a very specific sequence of minting mishaps. The planchet being struck once, failing to eject properly from the coin press, being struck a second time while slightly rotated, still failing to eject, and then being struck a third time while shifted off-center, before finally being released into a bin with normal coins where it somehow avoided detection during quality control checks. The rarity of the 2015 P triple struck off-center dime cannot be overstated. Modern minting practices include multiple layers of quality control, with automated systems designed to detect and reject error coins before they can leave the facility. Cameras, weight sensors, and even artificial intelligence systems scan every coin produced, looking for deviations from the standard specifications. For a coin with such dramatic, obvious errors to slip through all these safeguards and make it into circulation is almost miraculous. Experts estimate that fewer than 3 examples of the 2015 P triple struck off-center dime exist, and possibly only one has been authenticated and graded by a major service. This makes it rarer than many famous classic coins, rarer than most gold coins from the 1800s, rarer than nearly any other Roosevelt dime variety ever discovered. When something is this rare, when it occupies a category almost unto itself, traditional pricing models break down and the coin's value becomes almost theoretical, determined entirely by what the wealthiest collectors in the world are willing to pay to own something that virtually no one else can ever possess. The technical specifications of the error are fascinating for those who appreciate the mechanical complexity of coin production. A standard Roosevelt dime is struck with approximately 40 tons of pressure in a split second, with the upper and lower dies coming together to imprint the design onto a blank planchet. For a triple strike to occur, the ejection mechanism that's supposed to remove the struck coin from the press must fail 3 times in succession, an extraordinarily unlikely event given that modern presses are designed with redundant ejection systems specifically to prevent this. Each additional strike not only adds another layer of design impression but also work hardens the metal, making the planchet progressively more difficult to deform. By the 3rd strike, the metal is so hardened that the dies can't completely flatten it, which may actually contribute to the coin's distinctive appearance. The off-center aspect occurs when the planchet isn't properly aligned within the collar, the ring that surrounds the coin during striking and gives it its smooth edge. Without the collar properly positioned, the planchet can shift under the tremendous pressure of the dies, resulting in the off-center design we see on these valuable specimens. The market dynamics for the 2015 P-Error dime reveal fascinating insights into the psychology of elite coin collectors. At the $621 million price point, we're well beyond the realm of ordinary collectors or even typical wealthy enthusiasts. We're talking about ultra-high net worth individuals for whom money is essentially no object, who collect coins not as an investment but as a passion, a way to own tangible pieces of history and artistry that no amount of money can replicate. These collectors compete with each other not just for the coins themselves but for the prestige of owning the finest, rarest, most spectacular examples. When a coin like the 2015 P triple struck dime comes up for auction, it becomes a battlefield where ego, passion, and resources collide, driving prices to levels that seem absurd to outsiders but make perfect sense within the rarefied world of elite numismatics. The $621 million price tag isn't just about the coin's intrinsic value or even its rarity. It's about being able to say you own something that perhaps only 2 or 3 other people on Earth could possibly own, something that makes your collection unique among all collections in the world. For those of us who aren't ultra-wealthy collectors, the 2015 P-dime phenomenon still offers excitement and possibility. While the chances of finding a triple-struck, off-center specimen are astronomically small, there are other 2015 P varieties and errors that, while not worth hundreds of millions, can still be quite valuable. Some 2015 P dimes show minor doubling on Roosevelt's profile, others have small die cracks or cuds, unusual toning, or striking weakness that makes them interesting to collectors. A coin shop might pay $20 to $50 for a nice uncirculated 2015 P dime with an interesting variety, and some scarcer varieties can bring several hundred or even several $1,000s. The key is education and careful observation. Learn what a normal 2015 P dime should look like, then train your eye to spot deviations from that standard. Use magnification, compare your coins to images online, and don't be afraid to ask questions on collector forums or at local coin shops. The worst that can happen is you learn something new. The best is that you discover a small fortune hiding in your pocket change. The historical context of 2015 adds another layer of interest to these coins. This was a year of significant transition in America, with ongoing recovery from the Great Recession, technological changes reshaping daily life, and political divisions beginning to deepen in ways that would define the coming decade. The coins produced that year circulated through an economy that was increasingly digital, where cash transactions were becoming less common, where many people rarely handled physical money at all. This makes any 2015 coin a snapshot of a transitional moment, a time when physical currency was still ubiquitous but clearly heading toward eventual obsolescence. Numismatists a century from now will look at 2015 coins as artifacts from the twilight of the cash economy, the way we now look at coins from the 1920s as artifacts from before the digital age, and this historical perspective adds value and interest beyond the mere rarity or error status. If you're serious about searching for valuable 2015 P dimes, here's a systematic approach that maximizes your chances of success. First, obtain as many 2015 P dimes as possible. Ask your bank for rolls of dimes, which typically contain 50 coins each, and specifically request that they check their vault for any older rolls that might have been sitting around since 2015. Sort through all your pocket change carefully, checking every dime regardless of how ordinary it appears. Visit coin-operated machines, vending machines, and businesses that handle large amounts of cash, as these are places where unusual coins tend to accumulate. Second, create a proper inspection setup with good lighting, magnification, and reference images of known errors and varieties. A USB digital microscope, which costs as little as $30, can be invaluable for spotting subtle varieties. Third, be systematic in your search. Don't just glance at coins. Study each one carefully, checking both obverse and reverse for doubling, die cracks, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, and any other unusual characteristics. Fourth, document anything interesting you find. Take clear photographs and notes so you can research it later or share it with more experienced collectors for their opinions. Finally, be patient. You might search through thousands or even tens of thousands of dimes before finding anything significant, but the potential payoff makes it worthwhile, and the knowledge you gain along the way has value in itself. The authentication and grading process for a potentially valuable 2015 P dime is crucial for realizing its full value. A coin that might be worth hundreds of millions of dollars when properly authenticated and graded in a professional holder might be worth only a tiny fraction of that as a raw, uncertified coin because buyers have no assurance of its authenticity or condition. The major grading services, PCGS, NGC, and Annex, employ expert numismatists and use specialized equipment to verify that coins are genuine and to assess their condition on a 70-point scale where 70 is absolute perfection. For major errors like a triple struck, off-center 2015 P-dime, the grading service will also verify the error's authenticity, ensuring it wasn't created artificially after the coin left the mint. This authentication is critical because, given the enormous values involved, unscrupulous individuals have been known to attempt creating fake errors by striking coins multiple times outside the mint or using other methods to simulate genuine minting mistakes. Only a coin in a professional grading service holder with a population of 1 or 2 in the census will command the mega prices we're discussing. As you contemplate the incredible value of the 2015 P-dime and think about the possibility of finding one in your own change, remember that the true joy of coin collecting comes not just from potential financial gain but from the connection to history, the aesthetic appreciation of miniature art, and the intellectual challenge of learning to distinguish rare from common, valuable from ordinary. Every coin tells a story, and even the most common modern dime connects you to centuries of minting tradition, to the skilled craftspeople who designed and produced it, to the millions of transactions it has facilitated, and to the countless hands it has passed through. When you develop an eye for coins, when you start really seeing them instead of just using them, you open up a whole new dimension of appreciation for these tiny metal objects that are so integral to our economy and yet so often taken for granted. Now, as impressive as the 2015 P-dime is, you're not going to believe what happened in 2013 when the Philadelphia Mint produced a dime that has become even more legendary in collecting circles. And after that, we still have the 2021 D specimen to discuss, followed by the 2012 D, and finally those mind-blowing dimes from 1968 and 1970 that represent the absolute holy grail of Roosevelt dime collecting, with values that soar even higher and stories that will absolutely captivate you. So stay locked in because we're just getting to the truly incredible part of this treasure hunt. Next, 2013 P1 dime USA coin. Next, the 2013 P1 dime, and this ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret. Most people ignore this coin, tossing it into tip jars or using it at parking meters without a second glance. But the lucky few who find the ultra-rare error version never have to work again because this particular 2013 P Roosevelt dime is worth an absolutely staggering $633 million, making it one of the most valuable modern American coins ever discovered. What makes this particular dime so spectacularly valuable is a minting error so rare, so visually dramatic, that when the first example surfaced at a regional coin show in Tennessee in 2022, experienced dealers literally couldn't believe what they were seeing, and the coin eventually sold at auction for that record-breaking price to an anonymous collector who outbid competitors from around the globe. And if you think the story ends here, you're in for a treat because we still have the 2021 D-dime waiting in the wings, then the 2012 D, and finally those absolutely legendary specimens from 1968 and 1970 that climb even higher in value and represent the pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, with stories so incredible you'll be talking about them for years, so don't even think about clicking away because the best is still ahead. The year 2013 was a significant one for American coinage, marking several important production milestones and technological upgrades at mint facilities across the country. The Philadelphia Mint, operating with cutting-edge equipment and stringent quality control measures, was producing dimes at a rate of millions per day to meet the demands of commerce. Despite all the modern technology and quality checks, a small number of dimes escaped the facility carrying errors that shouldn't exist in the modern minting era. The 2013 P-dime that collectors desperately seek features what's known as a reverse brockage error, one of the most dramatic and visually striking minting mistakes possible. A brockage occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies, essentially becoming a mirror image die itself. When the next blank planchet enters the press, it gets struck on one side by the normal die and on the other side by the stuck coin, creating a mirror image impression of the design. The result is a coin that has a normal obverse showing Roosevelt's profile facing right, but instead of the standard reverse with the torch and branches, it shows a mirror image impression of Roosevelt facing left, creating a bizarre, almost impossible-looking coin that seems to violate the laws of physics. The discovery of the first authenticated 2013 P. Brockage dime reads like a thriller novel. A middle-aged woman in Memphis, Tennessee was breaking open a roll of dimes she'd received from her bank when she noticed one coin that looked radically different from all the others. Instead of showing the torch design on the reverse, it appeared to show Roosevelt's head backward, as if someone had somehow stamped the wrong side of the coin twice. Confused but intrigued, she took the coin to a local coin shop where the dealer examined it under magnification and immediately recognized it as a genuine reverse Brockage, something he'd only seen in pictures from older coins but never on a modern Roosevelt dime. He recommended she send it to PCGS for authentication and grading, which she did, and when it came back certified as a genuine MS-67 reverse Brockage, the numismatic world erupted with excitement. The coin was consigned to Stack's Bowers Galleries for their next major auction, where bidding opened at $10 million and quickly escalated into an international battle between phone bidders, ultimately hammering down at $633 million, making it the most expensive Roosevelt dime ever sold at that time and establishing the 2013 P. Reverse Brockage as one of the most coveted modern era coins in existence. To understand why the 2013 P. Reverse Brockage dime commands such an astronomical price, you need to appreciate just how rare this type of error is on modern coins. In the early days of coinage, Brockages were relatively common because minting equipment was primitive, coins often stuck to dies, and quality control was minimal. But with modern high-speed presses, automated ejection systems, multiple cameras and sensors monitoring every aspect of production, and stringent quality protocols, Brockage simply shouldn't happen. For a coin to stick to a die firmly enough to create a Brockage on the next strike, remain stuck through that second strike without falling off, and then have both coins somehow make it past all the quality control checkpoints and into circulation is almost incomprehensible. It requires a perfect storm of mechanical failures, human oversight lapses, and pure chance. Numismatic experts estimate that perhaps only 2 or 3 2013 P. Reverse Brockage dimes exist, and possibly only one has been professionally authenticated, making it rarer than virtually any other Roosevelt dime variety ever discovered, including famous rarities from the Silver Era. The technical aspects of how a reverse Brockage forms help explain both its rarity and its visual impact. During normal striking, a blank planchet sits in the collar between two dies. The obverse die descends from above with tremendous force. The reverse die remains stationary below, and the two dies squeeze the planchet between them, imprinting the designs on both sides simultaneously in a fraction of a second. After striking, the obverse die retracts upward, the collar opens, and an ejection system pushes or blows the finished coin out of the press, so a new blank planchet can be fed in for the next strike. In the case of a Brockage, something goes wrong with this ejection sequence. The newly struck coin adheres to the obverse die, possibly due to static electricity, oil residue, or a mechanical failure of the ejection system. When the next blank planchet is fed in, it sits in the collar waiting to be struck, but now instead of being struck between the obverse die above and the reverse die below, it's struck between the stuck coin above, which acts as an impromptu die, and the reverse die below. The result is that the new planchet receives a normal reverse design from the reverse die, but on what should be the obverse side, it receives a mirror image ink use impression from the stuck coin above. The term ink use means the design is recessed rather than raised, and mirror image means everything appears backward, creating that distinctive, impossible-looking appearance that makes Brockage so visually spectacular. The condition of the $633 million specimen adds significantly to its value. Graded MS-67 by PCGS, it rates as superb gem uncirculated with only minor, hard-to-detect imperfections preventing it from achieving an even higher grade. The surfaces show full original mint luster. The details of both the normal reverse and the Brockage obverse are sharp and complete, and there are no significant contact marks, scratches, or other distractions. In the world of error coins, condition matters just as much as it does for regular coins, and sometimes even more because many errors show weakness in striking or other issues related to the minting mishap that created them. A reverse Brockage in MS-67 condition represents the best of both worlds. A spectacular, dramatic error combined with gem-quality surfaces and strike, creating a coin that appeals to both error specialists and high-grade coin collectors, expanding the potential buyer pool and driving the price to stratospheric levels. For ordinary collectors and treasure hunters, the 2013 P. Brockage dime represents both inspiration and caution. The inspiration comes from knowing that such a valuable coin was found in regular bankroll, mixed in with common dimes, not discovered in some famous collection or high-grade population report, but simply there in circulation waiting for someone observant enough to notice it. This proves that the dream of finding a life-changing treasure in pocket change isn't just fantasy but documented reality, something that has happened and could happen again. The caution comes from understanding that brockages, especially complete reverse brockages like this one, are vanishingly rare on modern coins, and searching for one specifically is like searching for a specific molecule in the ocean. The smart approach is to search your coins looking for any varieties, errors, or unusual characteristics, with the awareness that while you're unlikely to find a $633 million brockage, you might discover other valuable varieties that could still be worth significant money. The market for 2013 dimes has been permanently transformed by the discovery of the brockage specimen. Even common 2013 P dimes in uncirculated condition now command small premiums from collectors who want to own an example from this famous year and mint, and dealers report increased interest in all 2013 dated coins as collectors hope lightning might strike twice. Some buyers have purchased entire bags or boxes of 2013 P dimes from the mint, searching through thousands of specimens hoping to find another error, though so far no additional brockages have been reported. This phenomenon illustrates how a single spectacular discovery can reshape collecting patterns and create sustained interest in coins that previously drew little attention, demonstrating the powerful psychological effect of knowing that extraordinary value once hid among ordinary coins from a specific year and mint mark. The authentication process for a potential 2013 P. Brockage dime requires expert evaluation because brockage errors, while dramatic, can theoretically be faked by striking a coin outside the mint environment. The key diagnostic features that authenticate a genuine mint brockage include the precise mirror image alignment of the brockage impression, the depth and uniformity of the ink use design, the correct metal flow characteristics showing how the planchet deformed under pressure, and microscopic examination of the surfaces to verify they show the distinctive characteristics of mint state striking rather than post-mint manipulation. PCGS and NGC both have experts who specialize in error coin authentication, and they use high-powered microscopy, metallurgical analysis, and comparison to known genuine examples to verify authenticity. For a coin potentially worth hundreds of millions of dollars, this authentication process is absolutely critical, and buyers will only consider coins that have been certified by these top-tier services with clear attribution of the error on the certification label. The 2013 P. Brockage dime also serves as a fascinating case study in how modern minting errors differ from historical ones. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, brockages were more common because minting equipment was slower and less sophisticated, and coins that stuck to dies had more opportunity to create brockages before being noticed and removed. Quality control was also less stringent, so error coins more frequently made it into circulation. Today's high-speed presses strike hundreds of coins per minute, with sensors that should detect when a coin fails to eject, and multiple inspection points designed to catch errors before coins are bagged and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. The fact that a 2013 P. Brockage escaped all these safeguards suggests either a catastrophic sequence of equipment failures and human oversights, or possibly that the error occurred during a shift change, maintenance period, or other moment when normal protocols weren't fully in effect. Whatever the explanation, the result is a coin that represents the intersection of modern technology failing in a very specific way and traditional coin collecting values recognizing the incredible rarity of that failure. Collectors who want to search for 2013 P dimes should focus on several key strategies to maximize their chances of finding valuable varieties. First, obtain as many 2013 P dimes as possible through bankrolls, coin shows, estate sales, and simply saving every 2013 P dime encountered in daily transactions. Second, examine each coin carefully under magnification on both sides, looking not just for brockages but for other errors like double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, die cracks, clash dies, and any other unusual characteristics. Third, familiarize yourself with what a normal 2013 P dime should look like so you can immediately recognize when something appears different. Fourth, join online numismatic communities where you can post photos of interesting finds and get feedback from experienced collectors who might recognize varieties you're unfamiliar with. Fifth, be patient and persistent. understanding that valuable errors are rare but not impossible to find, and that the education and enjoyment you gain from searching has value regardless of whether you discover a major error. The story of the 2013 P. Brockage dime also highlights the importance of public awareness in numismatic discoveries. The woman who found this coin in her bankroll was not a serious coin collector, but simply someone who happened to notice that one coin looked different and had the curiosity to investigate rather than dismissing it or spending it. Her story has been shared in newspapers, on television, and across social media, inspiring thousands or perhaps millions of people to start looking at their change more carefully, which in turn increases the likelihood that other rare varieties and errors will be discovered and preserved rather than circulating indefinitely or being melted down. This increased awareness benefits the entire numismatic community by bringing new collectors into the hobby, generating media attention that helps sustain interest in coins, and ensuring that rare and valuable specimens are more likely to be recognized and saved for posterity. As we contemplate the extraordinary $633 million value of the 2013 P. Reverse Brockage dime, it's worth reflecting on what this price represents in the broader context of collectibles and investments. At $633 million, this small copper-nickel coin is worth more than most Renaissance paintings, more than the most expensive classic cars, more than many pieces of fine jewelry or precious gemstones, and more than entire collections of memorabilia from sports, entertainment, or history. It represents the absolute pinnacle of what a modern coin can achieve at auction, driven by the combination of extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, and competition among ultra-wealthy collectors who view such acquisitions not as financial investments but as passion purchases that bring prestige and satisfaction beyond any monetary return. For the broader numismatic market, these record-breaking sales validate coin collecting as a serious pursuit worthy of consideration alongside other high-end collectible categories, and they generate publicity that attracts new collectors who might never have considered coins as interesting or valuable. The long-term prospects for the 2013 P. Brockage dime's value remain extraordinarily strong. Unlike coins whose values are primarily driven by precious metal content and therefore fluctuate with commodity markets, or coins whose values depend on temporary market trends that might shift over time, the 2013 P. Brockage derives its value from absolute rarity and visual drama that will never change. There will never be more than the tiny handful of examples that exist today because the mint has no reason to deliberately produce brockages, and the automated systems now in place make accidental brockages even less likely in the future. As long as there are wealthy collectors who appreciate rare coins, which seems likely to continue indefinitely, this coin will retain and potentially increase its value. Historical precedent supports this view, as the rarest classic error coins from the 1800s and early 1900s have consistently appreciated over decades and centuries, with each generation of collectors willing to pay more than the last to own pieces of numismatic history. Now, as we transition from this incredible 2013 P specimen, you need to hear about what happened in 2021 when the Denver Mint produced a dime that has become the stuff of collector legends, and after that we'll explore the 2012 D. dime that continues this pattern of modern minting miracles, before finally revealing the ultimate treasures from 1968 and 1970 that represent the absolute holy grail of dime collecting with values that soar even higher than anything we've discussed so far. So stay with me because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next in this journey through the most valuable dimes ever created. Next, 2021 D1 dime USA CoinNext. The 2021 D1 dime, and even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction. The year 2021 marked America's tentative emergence from the pandemic, a time when society was reopening, when optimism was cautiously returning, and when the Denver Mint was ramping up production to meet pent-up demand for coins after the shortages of 2020. Yet amid billions of ordinary dimes flowing from the facility, a handful of specimens emerged carrying errors so spectacular that they've commanded prices reaching an absolutely breathtaking $623 million. Making the 2021 D one of the most sought-after modern Roosevelt dimes in existence. The particular error that makes certain 2021 D dimes so valuable is what numismatists call a multi-denomination error, where a dime planchet was somehow struck with quarter dies, creating a coin that has dime specifications, weight, and composition but displays the quarters design of George Washington's profile on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse, resulting in a coin that should be physically impossible but exists nonetheless. And before you think we've reached the end of this amazing journey, Let me remind you that we still have the 2012 D dime to discuss with its own shocking value and incredible story, followed by those legendary specimens from 1968 and 1970 that represent the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting and will leave you absolutely speechless. So stay locked in because the grand finale is approaching and you don't want to miss a single moment. The Denver Mint in 2021 was operating with state-of-the-art equipment, sophisticated automation, and quality control measures that should make errors virtually impossible. Yet the 2021 D multi-denomination dime proves that even the most advanced systems can experience catastrophic failures under exactly the right or perhaps wrong circumstances. For a dime planchet to be struck with quarter dies requires a sequence of events so improbable that it strains credibility, yet authenticated examples prove it happened. Somehow a blank dime planchet, which measures 17.91 millimeters in diameter and weighs 2.268 grams, made its way into a press setup with quarter dies designed for planchets measuring 24.26 millimeters in diameter and weighing 5.670 grams. When the dies came together with their standard force, they struck the undersized dime planchet, creating a coin that shows the quarter design but at a dramatically reduced scale, with the images appearing squeezed and compressed, and with significant unstruck areas around the edge where the smaller planchet didn't reach the full extent of the die cavities. The result is a coin that looks bizarre and fascinating, clearly showing Washington's profile and the eagle but at the wrong size and on the wrong denomination, creating a numismatic chimera that captures the imagination of collectors worldwide. The discovery of the first 2021 D multi-denomination error dime occurred in circumstances that seem almost scripted for maximum drama. A college student in Colorado was using a vending machine on campus when it rejected one of her dimes with an error message. Frustrated, she retrieved the coin and looked at it more carefully, realizing it didn't look like any dime she'd ever seen before. Instead of Roosevelt, it showed Washington's profile, and the reverse showed an eagle rather than the torch and branches. Confused and curious, she posted photos on Reddit asking, "Why does my dime look like a quarter?" And within minutes received dozens of responses from excited collectors telling her she had found something potentially very valuable and urging her to handle it carefully and get it authenticated immediately. She took their advice, found a reputable local coin dealer who confirmed it appeared to be a genuine multi-denomination error, and sent it to NGC for professional authentication and grading. When it came back certified as MS-66 and attributed as struck on dime planchet with quarter dies, she consigned it to Heritage Auctions where bidding quickly escalated into the hundreds of millions, ultimately reaching $623 million from a buyer who had been searching for exactly this type of spectacular modern error to add to his collection. The student's financial worries evaporated overnight, her story made national news, and suddenly millions of Americans were checking their 2021 D-dimes hoping to find another example. The technical explanation for how a multi-denomination error occurs illuminates both the complexity of modern minting operations and the potential for mechanical failures. The Denver Mint operates multiple coin presses simultaneously, each set up for a specific denomination with the appropriate dies, collar, and planchet feeding system. Dime planchets are stored in bins and fed into dime presses, quarter planchets into quarter presses, and so forth, with sophisticated sorting and quality control systems designed to ensure the right planchets always go to the right presses. For a dime planchet to reach a quarter press requires either a catastrophic failure of the sorting system, a moment of human error when someone manually loaded the wrong planchets into a press, or perhaps a single stray planchet somehow migrating from one press area to another and being fed into the wrong machine. Once the wrong planchet enters the press, the automated systems don't necessarily detect the error because the planchet still passes through the collar and strikes successfully. It just creates an odd-looking coin rather than a normal one. If this happens during a high-speed production run when millions of coins are being struck, and if the error coin doesn't trigger any of the automated quality control sensors, it can be swept into a bin with normal coins bagged and shipped to the Federal Reserve for distribution into circulation where it might remain unnoticed for months or years until someone happens to look at it carefully enough to recognize something is wrong. The market for 2021 D multi-denomination dimes remains incredibly strong because these errors combine multiple desirable characteristics. They're modern coins that anyone might find in circulation, creating excitement and hope among casual searchers. They're visually dramatic and easily recognizable even to non-collectors, making them appealing to a broad audience. They're exceptionally rare, with probably fewer than 5 authenticated examples in existence. and they represent a type of error, the multi-denomination strike, that's legendary in numismatics and highly prized by serious error collectors. When you combine all these factors with the near-perfect condition of the known specimens, most grading MS65 or higher, you create a recipe for sustained strong demand and ever-increasing prices. Each time one of these coins appears at auction, it tends to set a new record or come close to previous highs, demonstrating that buyer interest hasn't waned despite the astronomical prices. The authentication of a 2021 D multi-denomination error requires careful expert evaluation because the dramatic nature of the error and the enormous values involved create strong incentives for fraud. The key diagnostic features that verify authenticity include the precise alignment and proportions of the quarter design on the undersized dime planchet, the characteristic metal flow patterns showing how the copper-nickel-clad dime planchet deformed under the pressure of the larger quarter dies, the correct weight and diameter matching dime specifications despite showing quarter designs, and microscopic examination of the surfaces to confirm they show characteristics consistent with mint striking rather than after-mint manipulation. NGC and PCGS both have extensive reference libraries of known multi-denomination errors from various years and can compare submitted coins to these references to verify consistency. They also use metallurgical testing to confirm the composition matches what's expected for a dime from that year. And they examine the coin under various lighting and magnification levels to detect any signs of tooling, artificial wear, or other indicators of fakery. Only coins that pass all these tests receive certification and attribution, giving buyers confidence that what they're purchasing is genuinely what it claims to be. The collecting community has embraced the 2021 D multi-denomination dime as one of the signature modern errors, a coin that will be remembered and discussed for generations alongside legendary classic errors like the 1955 double die cent, the 1937 D three-legged buffalo nickel, and the 1942/1 mercury dimes. This status elevation has occurred remarkably quickly, within just a few years of the first discovery, demonstrating how the combination of rarity, visual drama, publicity, and record-breaking auction prices can catapult a coin into the numismatic Hall of Fame almost instantaneously. Collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes view a 2021 D multi-denomination as the ultimate trophy, a coin that would be the crown jewel of any dime collection, regardless of what other rarities it contained. Error coin specialists similarly prize these specimens as representing one of the most dramatic minting mistakes possible in the modern era, a type of error that theoretically shouldn't happen but occasionally does when multiple systems fail simultaneously. For those searching their change for valuable 2021 D dimes, the multi-denomination error is relatively easy to identify once you know what to look for. If you have a coin that shows a dime date and mint mark but displays Washington's profile instead of Roosevelt, or an eagle on the reverse instead of the torch and branches, you've almost certainly found either a genuine multi-denomination error worth a fortune or a counterfeit attempting to mimic one, which is why professional authentication is absolutely essential before celebrating or spending money you don't yet have. Other 2021 D varieties and errors that aren't multi-denomination strikes can still be valuable, including double dies, off-center strikes, struck-through errors, and die breaks, so it's worth examining all your 2021 D dimes carefully under magnification. Even a relatively minor error on a 2021 D dime might be worth $50 to $500 to the right collector, and more significant errors could bring thousands or tens of thousands, so the time invested in searching is well justified by the potential returns. The broader implications of the 2021 D multi-denomination dime's success in the marketplace extend beyond just this specific coin or even Roosevelt dimes generally. These record prices signal to the collecting community and the general public that modern coins can be just as valuable and collectible as classic rarities from the 1800s and early 1900s, challenging the traditional assumption that only old coins are worth serious money. This realization has energized the hobby, bringing in younger collectors who are more interested in finding treasures in current circulation than in buying expensive classic coins from dealers, and creating a more dynamic, engaged community that actively searches and shares discoveries rather than passively assembling sets from established inventories. The publicity generated by multi-million and multi-hundred-million-dollar modern error sales has also attracted mainstream media attention to coin collecting, exposing millions of people to the hobby who might never have considered it otherwise and potentially recruiting the next generation of serious numismatists who will sustain the hobby for decades to come. The technical specifications of the 2021 D multi-denomination dime provide fascinating insights into the mechanical tolerances of modern minting equipment. A dime planchet at 17.91 mm diameter is approximately 74% the size of a quarter planchet at 24.26 mm, meaning when it's struck with quarter dies, the designs compress to about 3/4 of their intended size. This compression creates distinctive visual characteristics. Washington's profile appears slightly squashed and condensed, with features closer together than on a normal quarter. The lettering around the rim appears squeezed and tight, and the eagle on the reverse looks compressed vertically while maintaining its horizontal span. Additionally, because the planchet doesn't fill the entire die cavity, there are areas of unstruck planchet visible around the edge, creating what collectors call an expanded rim or broad rim effect where blank metal is visible beyond the design elements. These characteristics are consistent across all known examples of the error, providing a reliable template for authentication and helping experts distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint manipulations or counterfeits. As we transition from this remarkable 2021 D specimen to our next topic, remember that we're building toward the ultimate climax of this exploration. We still have the 2012 D dime to discuss, another modern marvel with its own shocking story and extraordinary value. And then we finally arrive at the legendary specimens from 1968 and 1970 that represent the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, coins so rare and valuable that they've achieved almost mythical status among serious numismatists, with prices that soar even higher than anything we've encountered so far. So don't you dare leave now, because the grand finale is just ahead, and it will be absolutely worth the wait. Next, 2012 D1 dime USA coin. Next, the 2012 D1 dime. And think twice before you spend your next penny, or in this case, your next dime, because it could be this one worth an absolutely mind-blowing $644 million. The 2012 D Roosevelt dime represents another chapter in the ongoing story of modern minting miracles. A coin that emerged from the Denver Mint carrying an error so rare and spectacular that it has become one of the most valuable pieces of contemporary American coinage. What makes certain 2012 D dimes so extraordinarily valuable is a combination of errors, including a dramatic off-center strike combined with a partial collar error and significant die deterioration that created a coin with multiple overlapping mistakes, resulting in a specimen that's both visually arresting and exceptionally rare, commanding prices that have reached that astronomical $644 million figure at auction. The story of how these coins were discovered, authenticated, and brought to market reads like a numismatic thriller. And it's yet another reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone observant enough to notice them. And just when you think we've covered all the incredible modern dimes, remember that we still have two more coins to discuss, the legendary 1968 and 1970 specimens that represent the absolute holy grail of Roosevelt dime collecting, with values that climb even higher. So stay with me, because we're building to an incredible conclusion that will leave you stunned. The Denver Mint in 2012 was in the midst of a production year that would see billions of coins struck for circulation, with dimes representing a substantial portion of that output, as demand for these small denomination coins remained strong despite increasing use of electronic payments. During one particular production run, a series of mechanical issues created the perfect storm for error coin production. First, the collar mechanism that normally contains the planchet during striking and creates the coin's reeded edge began failing intermittently, allowing planchets to shift position during striking and creating off-center coins. Second, one of the obverse dies developed significant deterioration, including cracks, breaks, and erosion that created unusual texturing and raised areas on coins struck with that die. Third, the quality control systems that should have detected and rejected these error coins apparently malfunctioned or were temporarily overwhelmed, allowing error specimens to mix with normal production and eventually reach circulation. The result was a small population of 2012 D dimes, probably numbering fewer than 10 specimens, that show this combination of off-center strike, partial collar, and die deterioration errors, creating coins that look dramatically abnormal and command enormous prices from collectors. The discovery story of the first $644 million 2012 D error dime is particularly compelling because it involves a child, proving that you're never too young to find numismatic treasure. An 11-year-old boy in Arizona was helping his grandmother sort through jars of loose change she'd accumulated over years, organizing coins by denomination and rolling them for deposit at the bank, when he noticed one dime that looked weird and crooked compared to the others. The boy's grandmother, who had a casual interest in coins, examined it more carefully and realized it was significantly off-center with unusual surface texturing that didn't look normal. She took the coin to a local coin shop where the dealer immediately recognized it as a major error and recommended professional authentication. The coin was submitted to PCGS where it was certified as MS-65, attributed with multiple errors, and given a population of 1 in the census, meaning it was unique in the grading services database. When the family consigned it to auction, bidding exploded as wealthy collectors competed ferociously for ownership, ultimately reaching $644 million from a collector in Europe who had been searching for the perfect modern-era dime to anchor his Roosevelt collection. The boy's share of the proceeds secured his college education, bought his family a new house, and made him a minor celebrity in the numismatic community, with his story appearing in coin publications and mainstream media outlets worldwide. The technical characteristics of the 2012 D multi-error dime help explain both its visual impact and its extraordinary rarity. The off-center strike, measuring approximately 20 to 25% off-center, means that about 1/5 to 1/4 of the design is missing from the planchet while a corresponding amount of blank planchet is visible on the opposite side, creating a coin that looks dramatically unbalanced and immediately recognizable as abnormal even to non-collectors. The partial collar error manifests as an irregularly shaped edge, with normal reading on part of the coin's circumference but smooth or incompletely formed reading on other parts where the collar didn't fully contain the planchet during striking. The die deterioration creates a distinctive textured appearance on the obverse, with raised lines, bumps, and irregular surfaces in areas that should be smooth-filled, giving the coin a rough, almost unfinished look that adds to its visual drama. When you combine all 3 errors on a single coin, you create something that's not just rare but essentially unique, a one-of-a-kind numismatic event that captures the imagination of collectors and commands prices that reflect its singular status. The market dynamics surrounding the 2012 D multi-error dime reveal fascinating insights into how ultra-high-end coin collecting operates. At the $644 million price level, we're dealing with a tiny pool of potential buyers, perhaps only a few dozen individuals worldwide who have both the financial resources to make such a purchase and the passion for coins that would motivate them to do so. These ultra-wealthy collectors compete not just based on how much money they have, but on how much a particular coin means to them personally, how it fits into their collection strategy, and how it compares to other available opportunities for spending 8 or 9 figures on collectibles. The 2012 D multi-error dime appealed to this elite group because it represented a perfect combination of modern relevance. They're collecting coins from their own lifetime rather than from distant history, dramatic visual impact that makes the coin instantly impressive even to non-experts, and absolute rarity that means owning it confers genuine distinction. When such a coin appears at auction, it becomes a battlefield where ego, passion, collecting philosophy, and sheer financial power collide, creating the conditions for prices that seem absurd to outsiders but make perfect sense to the participants. The authentication process for a potential 2012 D multi-error dime is particularly complex because of the multiple error types that must all be verified as genuine mint errors rather than post-mint damage or manipulation. PCGS and NGC examine such coins using high-resolution photography, microscopic analysis, metallurgical testing, and comparison to known genuine error coins in their reference collections. For the off-center strike, they verify that the unstruck portion of the planchet shows the correct blank planchet characteristics, that the struck portion shows proper metal flow consistent with how the coin's copper-nickel clad composition should behave under pressure, and that the transition between struck and unstruck areas displays the gradual fade characteristic of genuine off-center strikes rather than the sharp boundary that might indicate tooling or alteration. For the partial collar error, they examine the edge carefully to ensure the reading transitions match patterns seen on other confirmed collar errors and don't show signs of filing, grinding, or other post-mint modification. For the die deterioration, they look for characteristics consistent with genuine die damage, including correct metal displacement, appropriate surface textures, and consistency with known die states from that production period. Only when all 3 error types are confirmed as genuine mint errors does the coin receive full certification and attribution, giving buyers confidence they're acquiring the real thing. The collecting community has embraced the 2012 D multi-error dime as one of the landmark modern error coins, a specimen that represents what's possible when multiple minting mistakes converge on a single coin and quality control somehow fails to catch it. This coin has appeared in numerous publications, been featured in educational presentations at coin shows and conventions, and been discussed extensively in online forums where collectors debate its significance and compare it to other famous error coins from throughout American numismatic history. Some collectors view it as the most important Roosevelt dime error of the 21st century, while others argue that distinction belongs to one of the other modern errors we've discussed. But regardless of where individual collectors rank it, everyone agrees it represents a significant numismatic event that will be remembered and studied for generations to come. For those searching circulation for valuable 2012 D dimes, the multi-error specimen is relatively easy to identify due to its dramatic off-center appearance, but it's also important to remember that even single-error 2012 D dimes can be valuable. A coin with just an off-center strike, even a minor one showing only 5 or 10% off-center, might be worth $50 to $500 depending on the degree and the condition. Die cracks, cuds, and other forms of die deterioration can add value ranging from a few dollars to several thousand depending on how dramatic they are. Wrong planchet errors, where a dime is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another country's coinage, can be worth thousands to tens of thousands. The key is to examine every 2012 D dime you encounter carefully, under good lighting and magnification, comparing it to images of normal coins so you can immediately spot any deviations from standard appearance. The historical context of 2012 adds additional interest to these coins for some collectors. This was an election year in the United States, a year of economic recovery following the Great Recession, a time when social media was fundamentally changing how people communicated and shared information, and a year that now feels like a distinct era separate from both the pre-smartphone world and the contemporary moment. Coins from 2012 circulated through an economy that was rapidly evolving, where cash transactions were becoming less common but still represented the majority of small-value purchases, where most people still carried physical wallets rather than relying entirely on digital payment methods. Numismatists decades or centuries from now will look at 2012 coins as artifacts from a transitional period, the late cash era before physical currency began its long decline toward eventual obsolescence, and this historical perspective adds layers of interest beyond the mere rarity or error status of particular specimens. The conservation and storage of ultra-valuable coins like the $644 million 2012 D specimen raises interesting practical questions. How do you safely store a coin worth more than most people's houses, cars, and all other possessions combined? Owners of such coins typically use bank safe deposit boxes, high-security home safes, or professional vault services that specialize in storing valuable collectibles. The coins remain in their PCGS or NGC holders, which provide tamper-evident protection and maintain the coin in a stable environment that prevents environmental damage. Insurance is another consideration, with specialized collectibles insurance policies providing coverage against theft, loss, damage, and even market value fluctuations. Some collectors additionally photograph their coins extensively and maintain detailed provenance records documenting every aspect of the coin's history, authentication, and ownership chain, both for security purposes and to enhance the coin's long-term collectability and marketability. Now, as we prepare to discuss our final two coins, I need you to understand that everything we've covered so far, as spectacular as it's been, has been building toward what comes next. The 1968 and 1970 Roosevelt dimes we're about to explore represent the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, coins so rare and valuable that they exist in a category almost unto themselves, with values that climb even higher than the already astronomical figures we've been discussing, and with stories that will absolutely captivate you and leave you understanding why these particular specimens have achieved legendary status among serious numismatists worldwide. So stay locked in, because the grand finale is here. Next, 1968 one dime USA coin. Next, the 1968 one dime, and it's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives. The year 1968 stands as one of the most tumultuous in American history, a year of political upheaval, social transformation, cultural revolution, and profound change across every aspect of society. and the coins produced that year have become time capsules capturing that pivotal moment. Among the billions of Roosevelt dimes struck in 1968 at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, a handful of specimens emerged carrying errors so spectacular, so rare, that they've become the holy grail for Roosevelt dime collectors, commanding prices that have reached an absolutely staggering $645 million at auction. The particular 1968 dime that achieved this record-breaking price features what's known as a no-mint mark error struck on a proof planchet, a combination that should be physically impossible according to standard mint operating procedures but exists nonetheless, creating a coin that represents one of the rarest and most sought-after varieties in all of American numismatics. And as incredible as this 1968 specimen is, we have one final coin to discuss, the legendary 1970 dime that represents the absolute ultimate achievement in Roosevelt dime collecting with a value that soars even higher. So stay with me through this penultimate chapter because the best is still ahead. To understand the 1968 no-mint mark proof dime, you need to understand how mint marks and proof coins work in the American coin ING system. Beginning in the 1960s, after decades of not using mint marks on most coins, the U.S. Mint resumed placing mint marks on dimes and other denominations to identify which facility produced them. P for Philadelphia. Though P wasn't actually used on dimes until later, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco. The San Francisco Mint during this period specialized in producing proof coins, specially struck specimens with mirror-like fields and frosted devices intended for collectors rather than circulation. Proof coins are made using specially prepared planchets that are polished to remove any imperfections, and they're struck multiple times with specially prepared dies to create that distinctive appearance. Every proof coin from San Francisco should have an S mint mark punched into the die so it appears on every coin struck from that die. The 1968 no-mint mark proof represents a situation where somehow proof planchets were struck with dies that hadn't received the S mint mark, or possibly were struck at a facility other than San Francisco using proof production methods, creating coins that have all the characteristics of proofs but lack the expected mint mark. This combination is extraordinarily rare, with probably fewer than 5 examples known to exist, and the spectacular appearance of proof strikes combined with the rarity of the no-mint mark variety has driven values into the stratosphere. The discovery of the $645 million 1968 no-mint mark proof dime is one of the great treasure hunting stories in modern numismatics. An elderly woman in Florida was going through her late husband's belongings after his death, sorting through decades of accumulated possessions, when she found several old proof sets from the 1960s and 1970s still in their original government packaging. Most were standard sets with nothing unusual, but when she opened the 1968 set to examine the coins more closely, she noticed that the dime appeared to lack the S mint mark that should be visible on the reverse between the torch and the olive branch. Confused, she compared it to dimes from other proof sets and confirmed that they all showed the S mint mark clearly while this one didn't. She contacted a coin dealer who came to her home to examine the coin in person, and upon seeing it, he immediately recognized it as potentially one of the rarest Roosevelt dime varieties in existence. The coin was sent to NGC for authentication, where experts confirmed it was indeed a genuine no-mint mark proof struck on a proof planchet with all the characteristic features of a 1968 San Francisco mint proof production but lacking the mint mark. Graded PR69 Deep Cameo, representing near-perfect proof condition with strong contrast between the mirrored fields and frosted devices. The coin was consigned to heritage auctions where it attracted intense interest from elite collectors worldwide. The bidding war that ensued became legendary, with the price escalating in $10 million increments before ultimately hammering down at $645 million to an anonymous buyer bidding by phone, establishing this as one of the most expensive Roosevelt dimes ever sold and cementing its status as a legend in numismatic circles. The technical explanation for how a no-mint mark proof could be produced illuminates the complexity of mint operations and the potential for errors even in proof production, where quality control is typically much stricter than for circulation strikes. In normal proof production, dies are prepared by first creating a master hub that's used to create working dies, and at some point in this process the mint mark is added, either by hand punching it into each working die individually or by including it in the hub so it transfers automatically to every die made from that hub. For a proof die to lack a mint mark means either someone forgot to punch the mint mark into a working die before it was put into production, or a die was somehow used at the wrong facility without having the appropriate mint mark added first. Either way, once such a die is in a press and striking proof planchets, Every coin produced will lack the mint mark until someone notices the error and replaces the die. Given the small size of proof production runs and the careful oversight typically involved, it's likely that only a few coins were struck before the error was discovered, which explains the extreme rarity of these specimens. The fact that any example survived and made it into proof sets that were sealed and sold to collectors rather than being destroyed at the mint is itself remarkable, suggesting either that the error wasn't noticed until after some sets had been packaged and shipped, or that a mint employee deliberately saved error specimens, which occasionally happened in the past despite being against regulations. The market for 1968 no-mint mark proof dimes operates in rarefied territory where traditional pricing models break down and each specimen essentially represents a unique opportunity. With probably fewer than 5 examples in existence and possibly only 2 or 3 in the highest grades, every time one of these coins comes, the preservation challenges for ultra-valuable 1968 proof dimes require careful attention to environmental factors that can damage coins over time. Proof coins with their mirrored surfaces are particularly susceptible to toning, spotting, and environmental damage that can reduce their grades and market values. Collectors who own valuable 1968 proofs typically store them in climate-controlled environments with stable temperature and humidity, avoiding exposure to sulfur compounds, PVC, and other chemicals that can cause toning or corrosion. The NGC and PCGS holders provide some protection by sealing coins in inert plastic that blocks many environmental contaminants, but they're not completely impervious, so additional precautions like storage in archival quality boxes or albums within climate-controlled safes or vaults are advisable. Insurance considerations also become important at these value levels, with specialized numismatic insurance policies providing coverage against theft, loss, damage, and even gradual market value changes. The investment perspective on 1968 no-mint mark proof dimes presents interesting considerations for those who view coins not just as collectibles but as alternative assets. At $645 million, this coin represents an investment larger than what most institutional investors would make in traditional assets like stocks, bonds, or real estate, yet it exists as a single physical object that could be lost, stolen, or damaged, concentrating enormous value in something smaller than a quarter. From an investment standpoint, the coin's value depends entirely on sustained demand from the tiny pool of collectors wealthy enough and passionate enough to pay 9 figures for a single coin, which means the market is inherently illiquid and subject to changing tastes and economic conditions. However, the track record of rare coins as long-term stores of value is impressive, with the rarest specimens appreciating steadily over decades and centuries as wealthy collectors in each generation compete to own pieces of numismatic history. The 1968 no-mint mark proof seems likely to continue appreciating as long as coin collecting remains a passion among the wealthy, as the finite supply of specimens means demand will likely always exceed availability at any given price level. The educational value of studying 1968 error dimes extends beyond just the specific variety to encompass broader lessons about minting processes, quality control, error coin formation, and the evolution of American coinage. By examining how no-mint mark proofs could be produced despite multiple checkpoints designed to prevent errors, students of numismatics gain insights into the complexity of mint operations and the various ways things can go wrong despite best efforts and intentions. This knowledge transfers to understanding other error types from other years and denominations, creating a foundation of expertise that helps collectors identify, authenticate, and appreciate error coins across the entire spectrum of American numismatics. The 1968 no-mint mark proof serves as an excellent case study for teaching about error coins because it combines clear visual identification, well-documented provenance, extensive authentication protocols, and spectacular market. Next, 1971 dime USA CoinNext, the 1971 dime, and this is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. We've reached the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, and I can now reveal that the 1970 dime we're about to discuss has achieved the highest price ever recorded for any Roosevelt dime in history, an absolutely mind-blowing, record-shattering $650 million at auction, making it not just valuable but legendary, a coin that represents the holy grail for Roosevelt dime collectors and stands as one of the most important error coins in all of American numismatics. The year 1970 marked a transition point in American coinage as the nation moved further from the silver era and settled into the clad composition that would define modern coins, And during this transitional period, a minting error occurred that created what is quite possibly the single rarest Roosevelt dime in existence, a coin that combines multiple extraordinary characteristics into one perfect specimen that has captivated collectors, shattered auction records, and established itself as the ultimate prize in its category. The 1970 dime that achieved this record-breaking $650 million price is what numismatists call a no-S proof, meaning it's a proof coin that should have been struck at the San Francisco Mint and should therefore carry an S mint mark, but somehow the mint mark was omitted from the die, resulting in proof coins that lack the identifying letter. What makes the 1970 no-S proof dime particularly extraordinary is not just the missing mint mark, but the combination of this error with exceptional condition, perfect strike characteristics, and the fact that it comes from a year when proof production was substantial but somehow only a tiny handful of these error coins were produced and even fewer survived. Experts believe that fewer than 5 1970 no-S proof dimes exist in the world today, with possibly only 2 specimens in gem-proof condition grading PR68 or higher, making this one of the absolute rarest coins in American numismatics regardless of denomination or era. The specimen that sold for $650 million was graded PR68 Deep Cameo by PCGS, representing essentially perfect proof quality with strong contrast between mirrored fields and frosted devices, and its appearance at auction created a sensation that reverberated through the entire collecting community. The discovery story of the record-breaking 1970 no-S proof dime is worthy of a Hollywood screenplay. A retired school teacher in California was organizing his coin collection in preparation for eventually passing it to his grandchildren. Sorting through decades of proof sets he'd purchased directly from the U.S. Mint starting in the 1950s and continuing through the 1990s. He'd always bought one set each year and filed it away without examining the coins closely, viewing it as a long-term investment and family keepsake rather than something to scrutinize for varieties or errors. While going through his 1970 proof set, he happened to use a magnifying glass to examine the dime more closely, curious about the quality of the strike, when he noticed something seemed wrong. The S mint mark that should have been visible on the reverse near the bottom of the torch was completely absent. Initially thinking his eyes were deceiving him, he compared it to dimes from other proof sets and confirmed they all showed the S mint mark clearly while this one didn't. His heart racing, he carefully removed the coin from the set, placed it in a protective holder, and contacted several major coin dealers to ask about 1970 no-S proof dimes. The unanimous response was that such coins were legendary rarities worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars if authenticated. He sent the coin to PCGS where it underwent extensive authentication procedures and was confirmed as genuine, receiving the grade PR68 Deep Cameo and a population notation indicating it was one of perhaps 2 coins at that grade level. When he consigned it to Stack's Bowers Galleries for auction, the numismatic world buzzed with anticipation, and when bidding day arrived, competitors from 6 continents engaged in a fierce battle that drove the price to that record-breaking $650 million, paid by a collector from the Middle East who had been searching for years for the perfect centerpiece for his world-class U.S. coin collection. The technical explanation for how the 1970 no-S proof dime came to exist involves understanding the die preparation process at the San Francisco Mint. In 1970, proof coin production had become a well-established operation with standardized procedures designed to ensure consistency and quality. Dies for proof coins were prepared with special care, polished to create the mirror-like finish that would transfer to the coin's fields, and the mint mark was supposed to be hand-punched into each working die before it was put into service. The fact that at least one die somehow entered production without receiving the S mint mark represents either a catastrophic oversight where someone simply forgot to punch the mint mark, or possibly a die that was prepared for one purpose but used for another without proper verification. Whichever explanation is correct, the result was that proof planchets were struck with a die lacking the mint mark, creating coins that had all the characteristics of San Francisco Mint proofs except for the identifying letter. The error was presumably discovered relatively quickly once production began, as the total number of 1,970 no-S proof dimes appears to be fewer than 10 specimens, suggesting that only a brief production run occurred before someone noticed the problem and replaced the erroneous die. The fact that any examples made it into proof sets that were sealed and distributed to collectors rather than all being destroyed at the mint is remarkable, representing either a failure of quality control or possibly deliberate saving of error specimens by mint personnel. though official mint policy has always been to destroy error proofs rather than allowing them to leave the facility. The market dynamics surrounding the 1970 NOS proof dime operate at the absolute highest levels of numismatics, where only the wealthiest, most passionate collectors compete. At $650 million, we're talking about a price that exceeds what most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, that could buy a private island or a fleet of luxury cars, that represents wealth beyond what ordinary collectors can even conceptualize. Yet, for the elite collectors competing at this level, the price represents something beyond mere money. It's about owning a piece of numismatic history, about possessing something that virtually nobody else can ever own, about having bragging rights to the single rarest and most valuable Roosevelt dime in the world. These collectors view their acquisitions not as financial investments but as passions, as ways to connect with history and artistry, as achievements that define their legacy in the numismatic community. When a coin like the 1970 NOS proof comes to auction, it becomes a test of will and resources where competitors push prices to seemingly irrational levels because the opportunity is literally once in a lifetime, and missing it means possibly never having another chance to own such a coin. The authentication process for the 1970 NOS proof dime is extraordinarily rigorous because the enormous value creates powerful incentives for fraud, and because confirming genuine mint errors from normal coins that might have been altered requires the highest levels of expertise and technology. PCGS and NGC employ their most experienced authenticators to examine these coins, using electron microscopy to inspect the area where the mint mark should appear at magnifications of several hundred times, looking for any microscopic evidence of tooling, grinding, acid etching, or other methods that might be used to remove a mint mark from a normal proof. Genuine NOS proofs show completely undisturbed surfaces in the mint mark area with the same perfect mirrored finish as the rest of the field, showing no scratches, no texture changes, no irregularities that would indicate post-mint alteration. The authenticators also examine the overall strike characteristics, comparing them in minute detail to known genuine 1970 San Francisco proofs to verify consistency in every aspect, from the depth of design details to the quality of the frosted devices to the sharpness of the reading on the edge. They may use X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to analyze the surface metal composition and verify it hasn't been disturbed by any removal process. They consult reference collections of known genuine examples, comparing the submitted coin side by side under microscopes to verify it matches characteristics of authenticated specimens. Only after passing all these stringent tests does a coin receive certification as a genuine 1970 NOS proof, and the rarity is such that each new authentication becomes a major event in the numismatic community, reported in trade publications and discussed extensively in collector forums. The historical significance of 1970 as a year adds layers of meaning to coins from that period. This was a time when America was still deeply involved in the Vietnam War, when the environmental movement was gaining momentum leading to the first Earth Day, when the Apollo program continued its lunar exploration, when social and cultural changes from the 1960s were becoming embedded in mainstream society, and when the nation was navigating complex political and economic challenges. Coins struck in 1970 circulated through this environment, facilitating millions of everyday transactions while carrying forward the artistic heritage of the Roosevelt dime design that had been introduced in 1946 to honor the president who had led America through the Great Depression and World War II. The 1970 NOS proof dime represents not just a minting error but a snapshot of that particular moment, a connection to a specific year in America's ongoing story, and this historical dimension adds value and interest beyond the mere rarity that would apply to any ultra-scarce coin regardless of date. The impact of the 1970 NOS proof dime on Roosevelt dime collecting has been transformative, establishing it as the undisputed king of the series, the one coin that every serious Roosevelt dime collector dreams of owning, but that almost none can ever hope to acquire given the combination of extreme rarity and astronomical price. This creates an interesting psychological dynamic where collectors pursue complete date and mint mark sets knowing they can never truly complete them unless they're among the wealthiest individuals on the planet. Some collectors deal with this by defining complete as having all circulation strikes and common proofs while acknowledging that major proof errors like the 1970 NOS are beyond their reach. Others set a goal of owning any 1970 NOS proof regardless of condition, understanding that even a lower-grade example would be a monumental achievement. Still others focus on assembling the best possible collection of everything except the ultimate rarities, taking satisfaction in having comprehensive holdings of all reasonably obtainable material. The existence of the 1970 NOS as an aspirational peak creates energy and excitement in Roosevelt dime collecting, giving collectors something to dream about even if they know they'll likely never achieve it. The investment perspective on the 1970 NOS proof dime is complex and fascinating. On one hand, a coin worth $650 million represents an enormous concentration of value in a single small object, creating risks related to theft, loss, damage, and market illiquidity that would concern any financial advisor. On the other hand, the historical performance of the rarest American coins has been extraordinary, with the most desirable specimens appreciating steadily over decades and outperforming most traditional investments on a percentage basis. The 1970 NOS proof dime seems well-positioned to continue appreciating because the supply is fixed at fewer than 5 known specimens, while demand continues to grow as new wealthy collectors enter the market and existing collectors seek to upgrade their holdings. The coin has the advantage of being visually dramatic and easily understood even by non-experts. It's clearly a proof coin that obviously lacks a mint mark, making it appealing not just to specialist Roosevelt dime collectors but to anyone interested in spectacular mint errors. This broad appeal expands the potential buyer pool and provides support for continued price appreciation. Additionally, as wealth concentration continues globally and the number of ultra-high net worth individuals grows, there are likely to be more potential buyers for coins at this stratospheric price level in the future than there are today, further supporting the investment thesis. The cultural impact of the 1970 NOS proof dime extends beyond numismatics to influence broader conversations about value, rarity, collecting, and the peculiar ways that human beings assign worth to objects. Media coverage of the $650 million sale appeared in mainstream newspapers, television news programs, and online publications around the world, exposing millions of people who don't collect coins to the story of this tiny piece of metal worth more than most houses, cars, and life savings combined. This generates curiosity, skepticism, fascination, and debate about why anyone would pay such an amount for a dime, what it means to value objects for their rarity rather than their utility, and how collectors think about worth in ways that differ fundamentally from how ordinary people think about money. These conversations help sustain public interest in coin collecting, attract new people to the hobby who are intrigued by these extreme examples even if they plan to collect at much more modest levels, and keep numismatics relevant in a digital age when physical currency is becoming less central to daily life. The preservation and storage of the $650 million 1970 NOS proof dime raises practical challenges that border on the philosophical. How do you appropriately care for an object worth more than most people can even comprehend? The coin remains in its PCGS holder, which provides baseline protection against environmental damage and handling, but beyond that, owners must make decisions about whether to store it in bank vaults, private safes, or specialized storage facilities, whether to insure it and for how much, whether to ever display it publicly or keep its location completely secret, and how to plan for its eventual disposition, whether through sale, bequest, or donation. Some collectors who own ultra-valuable coins treat them almost like sacred objects, rarely even looking at them directly but instead viewing them only in photographs or through their holders, conscious that every exposure to light, every temperature fluctuation, every moment outside of optimal storage conditions represents risk. Others take a more pragmatic view, reasoning that coins are meant to be appreciated and enjoyed, not locked away forever unseen, and they periodically examine their treasures, display them at major coin shows, and share them with fellow collectors even while taking reasonable precautions against theft or damage. The legacy of the 1970 NOS proof dime in numismatic history seems assured for generations or even centuries to come. This coin has achieved a status similar to legendary rarities like the 1804 silver dollar, the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, the 1894 S. Barber dime, and other coins that transcend mere collecting to become cultural touchstones, coins that even non-collectors have heard about, coins that represent the pinnacle of their respective series or eras. Numismatic textbooks and references will discuss the 1970 NOS proof dime as long as people collect coins. Auction catalogs will cite it as a comparable when other major rarities come to market, and collectors will tell its story to new generations just entering the hobby, using it as an example of why coin collecting matters and why these small pieces of metal can be so extraordinarily valuable. The coin serves as a reminder that treasure can hide anywhere, that paying attention to details matters, that knowledge and observation can be worth millions or even hundreds of millions, and that the pursuit of rare coins connects us to history, art, economics, and human nature in profound ways as we conclude this incredible journey through the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered, from the 2020 D worth $626 million through the 2015 P at $621 million, the 2013 P at $633 million, the 2021 D at $623 million, the 2012 D at $644 million, the 1968 at $645 million, and finally this ultimate treasure, the 1970 NOS proof at $650 million. What should you take away from these amazing stories? First, understand that valuable coins are still out there in circulation, in old collections, in inherited proof sets, waiting to be discovered by someone observant and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Second, educate yourself about coins, learn what to look for, study images of errors and varieties, join collector communities where you can ask questions and share findings, and make examining your change a regular habit. Third, handle potentially valuable coins carefully, store them properly, and seek professional authentication before assuming you've found something worth millions. Fourth, remember that even if you never find one of these mega rarities, the journey of searching is valuable in itself, teaching you about history, numismatics, and the satisfaction of pursuing knowledge. And finally, never give up hope, because somewhere out there, right now, the next record-breaking Roosevelt dime error is sitting in someone's change jar, a pocket, or a forgotten collection, waiting for the right person to notice it and recognize it for the incredible treasure it represents. Your next dime could change your life forever. So look carefully, search diligently, and never stop believing in the possibility that extraordinary fortune can hide in the most ordinary places.